Ladies and gentlemen, now the president for Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has actually responded to Donald Trump for making a foul, statement or speech about Africa by referring to Africa as a shithole, country. This is not the first time Donald Trump is actually saying this or making such a comment. I remember the first time he actually became the president for America, he said this, and nowadays, recently he also said it again, which means that he doesn't actually have a bit of respect for what Africa. So His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has actually responded in the hard way. And guess what? This man is actually demanding for reparation. Let me quickly show you the video where Donald Trump actually made this particular foul statement here against Africa. And after that, I will show His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's speech. Okay. Now before that, please don't forget to actually like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more African related discussions.
I didn't say shithole, you did. We had a meeting, and I said, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good at is going after ships.
Now, whenever Western powers actually disrespecting people, and when it actually gets to the turn of Africa, they always make it West. Did you actually hear how he actually described, Somalia? There's filthy, disgusting, blah blah blah. And the only good things that these people are actually good at is to follow ships. So this is actually an insult. And His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, as a sensible Pan-Africanist president, John Dramani Mahama has actually interpreted this as something that has actually happened to every single African. And of course, this is the answer he actually gave to this.
We are at a place in our journey where we do not have the luxury of forgetting. When government officials can so easily use the words like garbage and filth to describe our kith and kin, when they can refer to our countries as shitholes, when they can indiscriminately strip people who look like us of citizenship that they have earned, we do not have the luxury of forgetting or of either excusing the racist dog whistles or explaining the overtly discriminatory and divisive statements that are made daily to our hearing. We have been divided with artificial borders of colonialism that split ethnic homelands right down the middle, with half of our communities being ruled by one European country and the other half being ruled by another. And with the labeling of our ethnicity in a colony as intellectual and worthy of education, while another ethnicity was said to be inherently martial and thus intellectually inferior. We've been divided by the manufacturing of coups, armed conflicts, anti-poverty programs that somehow never eradicate poverty, by the selective broadcast of stereotypes, a systemic war of images waged against us, images meant to foster fear and engender self-hatred.
He also emphatically talked about compensation and reparation, which simply means that during colonization and also slavery, the colonial master actually took a lot of things from Africa, including even our forefathers, and he said that we need reparation.
At the UN General Assembly, I served notice that Ghana will move a motion next year to recognize the transatlantic slave trade as the greatest crime against humanity. I know this motion will enjoy the utmost support from the entire African continent and the diaspora. Africa has suffered slavery, colonialism, genocide, and apartheid. We demand acknowledgement of these crimes against humanity. We demand the establishment of legal, institutional, and international mechanisms to advance reparative justice. Reparations must include tangible measures such as debt cancellation, monetary compensation, return of stolen artifacts, institutional reform, and transformative economic redress in the global economic system. It was a heady and ambitious statement, and the years that followed were equally as heady and ambitious, full of growth, infrastructural development, and the building of alliances between other newly independent African nations. There was a sense of hope. No, it was more than that. It was an intoxicating feeling of endless possibilities. It was a pure, perhaps naive belief that we could attain our own modern-day version of the glory that our forebears like Shaka the Zulu and Mansa Musa had, and that we could build our nation states to be as exemplary as the Mwene Mutepa Empire, Songhai, Mali, and the Ghana empires that had existed before. And then came the coup d'etats, many inspired by the imperial nations. Not just in Ghana, but in most of the other nations that had newly gained independence. And then came even more coup d'etats, one after the other, following by the imprisonment and exile of our liberation leaders. We now know as Ghanaians, as author Ama Ataidu wrote, that there are powerful forces undermining our progress in Africa. We suffered decades of brain drain that emptied a sizable portion of the continent's population, adding scores of exiles to the diaspora. And our nations themselves were surviving, but barely, on the remittances that those individuals sent home. It will surprise you to know, in 1990, the total number of Africans who had migrated voluntarily to the United States eclipsed the total number who had been brought as enslaved people to leaving an utterly devastated continent. When it comes to reparative justice, we ask what is just. There are those who have us go backward, not just one or two steps, as if that would not be bad enough. They want us to go all the way back. They want us to develop some sort of amnesia about the blood that was spilled, the lives that were lost, and the years that were sacrificed in order to fight for our freedom. This is precisely the time when we must advance and begin the process of reclamation. This is precisely the time when we must speak loudly and clearly, naming what it is we have lost, as well as what it is we hope to gain. Her Excellency Mian Amon Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, a great African sister, said in a lecture at the London School of Economics, the conspiracy of silence has diminished the horror of what our people faced. This year, at the UN General Assembly, I served notice that Ghana will move a motion next year to recognize the transatlantic slave trade as the greatest crime against humanity.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us quickly educate ourselves as patriotic Africans or true Africans. Now, this is not actually an entire speech from him, and this actually happened at the diaspora summit here in Ghana. That was when he actually delivered this powerful message. Now let us actually educate ourselves and analyze his messages point by point. Okay, now he actually says something which actually grabbed my heart or my attention. Now, according to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, he said that let us be more intentional about our unity than they were about our division. Let us be more intentional about our unity now. You understand me? Than they were. You understand me? About our division. So the more these people are still even trying presently or currently to make sure that our division remains intact. Let us become more advancing in terms of being very intentional and deliberate of uniting ourselves. And Ama Etedu is one of the greatest African authors. This woman also said something which is very powerful. You understand me? She said that, or she wrote, and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama actually quoted. She wrote that there are some powerful, some Western powers in Africa that are simply undermining our destiny, our progress here. And of course, we can actually see it even from the AES, states. Now, these people have actually trying to get a complete and a total or unlimited sovereignty or independence. But let us see, these people, they have actually been enveloped and engulfed in what we call terrorism. This is what those people are actually using as intermediate weapons to fight the AES states and other African states that are still experiencing civil wars. Ladies and gentlemen, so it is actually true and unequivocally honest that there are some powers that are actually against our progress here in Africa. They are actually doing everything every single day strategically to make sure that they undermine our progress here. Ladies and gentlemen, so His Excellency John Dramani Mahama said that let us be more intentional about our unity, our integration, than they were about our division. This is like I just love this. Let us be more intentional about our unity, our integration, our togetherness, our like-mindedness than these people were about our division. And even yet, they are still about our division. Ladies and gentlemen, once we actually decide, we can actually fight. Even if we get exhausted, we can actually continue fighting because we have actually become more intentional about our unity or uniting ourselves. Don't forget to actually like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more discussions and analysis like this. See you in the next update.